Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Raptor Queens podcast. My name is Sarah Khalil, and I'm here with my other queens of the North, Allison Hope, Sonali Sharma, and Essie Magic. We've got a full roster for the first time in a couple weeks. Thrilled to have all of you ladies with me. It's going to be fun. We've got a special episode. It's the All-Star break right now. We're going to do some Q&A for the first time ever. We've got a Q&A segment to our podcast, so it's all very new and exciting. A couple things I wanted to say. First of all, I've had a lot of people just reach out to me and say things along the lines of, I don't really follow basketball, but I've started listening to your podcast. And what I wanted to say is, if you're new to basketball or if you're new to the Raptors, welcome. This is an awesome season to become a basketball fan. This is a great time to be a Raptors fan. So it's just wonderful to have you with us. Welcome to Raptors Nation. It's going to be really great to have you here, and it's an exciting season. So this week, since our last recording, the Raptors played Brooklyn. They won 119-118, and then they played a wild and wacky game against the Timberwolves. They won 137-126, and then there was the last game before the All-Star break. They lost to the Nets 101-91, which ended a 15-game winning streak, which is the longest winning streak in Canadian pro sports history. If you look back at our last podcast, we all made some predictions about the week. Allison and I both predicted a 3-0 record, and we voluntold Sonali for the same thing because she's an optimist, and Essie predicted 2-1 with the loss coming against the Nets because the All-Star break might have gotten to our guys' heads a little bit. And I don't know if that's exactly why they lost, but Essie, you got the win on this one, so congratulations.
Yay! But at the same time, I'm upset because of the winning streak being over. It sucks to be right, but yeah, they ended up doing exactly what I had worried about, which was having their heads in the clouds. I think that's what I said in that prediction in that last game before the All-Star break. So yeah, I was right, but it was a sad right.
I mean, and that's exactly how you should feel about it. So you're on point again. Okay, so Essie, since you are clearly on a hot streak right now, let's actually start with you. Generally speaking, what were your impressions of the Raptors last week?
Sure. So it's a bit of an interesting week because I almost want to throw away that third game because it really throws off everything I thought about this week. But I'll still go through it because there were some concerns, believe it or not, that I still had watching the games, specifically the first game against Brooklyn. I started seeing Pascal revert back to the aspects of his game that I don't like, such as heaving up the shots close to the basket, trying to get a call. And obviously players are always trying to get a call when they drive, but you still have to try to score when you're in there. That's why some players are highly prone to 3-point plays, because they still try to score even though they're trying to get both the foul. But just seeing a lot of missed layups close to the basket late in the fourth, and just him heaving up the shot, and then screaming when he doesn't get the foul. And it's just you still got to try and score. Don't just throw it up in the air. Because then if you don't get the call, then it just looks foolish, really. So I started seeing some of that late in the fourth against Brooklyn. And there was even one play where it was, he was on Dinwiddie. It was Pascal versus Dinwiddie, which is obviously a mismatch. And he still managed to miss, close to the net in that game. So a lot of layups that were just too strong. And I just, that aspect of his game, I just really want him to work on improving his finishing. So that was the first game. And then the Minnesota game, I mean, obviously there was no defense at all in the first half, which was to be expected because Minnesota doesn't play defense. And then we just haven't really been playing defense in the first half that much for a lot of games in the stretch, and then we turn it up later. So I wasn't surprised. It was just trading baskets, but really, really impressed with Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. It was wow, I did not expect him to play Karl Anthony Towns like that because that was the game that Mark was out for. And so, not Mark, sorry, Serge was out, and because he had the flu-like symptoms. And the fact that he was able to step in against, 7-foot Karl Anthony Towns and still have a really effective game. I think it was actually a bit of an advantage for him, like his speed. He was more agile in the paint, and also especially on the fast break. If Rondé was leading the fast break, like that's the acronym in case you guys didn't know for Karl Anthony Towns, he couldn't keep up. So, it was just so good. It was like, and he's very athletic enough still to challenge on defense. So he was jumping up high, trying to get every rebound, challenging shots despite being shorter. And so that was awesome to see. And really, Karl Anthony Towns should have taken advantage of his size, but he didn't, because I don't know why he didn't do that. But so that was a really fun game. And then what else was there in that game? OG was doing well too, making threes, getting putbacks, altering shots on defense. There was also another funny play where Van Vliet was guarding Towns. And he still, even despite little Van Vliet on Towns, it's like Towns still missed the shot. So that game was just such a feel good. Even McCaw had a 3 and he was so excited over it. And so that game was overall feel good game. And then the Brooklyn game number 2, like I said at the beginning, kind of a throwaway game. They were lackadaisical, low energy. And I had a feeling that would happen before the All-Star break. But yeah, it's and also it's a little bit of that thing sometimes when teams play really close together. Fortunately, it didn't happen when we played Indiana twice in a row. But where when they play really close together, the losing team always comes back stronger. So I think a little bit of that happened as well. Yeah, so that was my take on the week. And yeah, overall good week, but then that end of the win streak sucked pretty much.
I feel like any team that loses against Brooklyn at home has a legitimate case to blame the color of Brooklyn's court for the reason that they lost. It's just the ugliest thing I've ever seen. It hurts my eyes and it makes everyone look like they're ill.
Oh my gosh. And speaking of that, I was so relieved that Minnesota did not play in that lime green jersey, because I hate playing them for just that lime green jersey.
Facts. Absolutely. Okay, Sonali, we missed you last week, so we haven't heard from you in a while. Why don't you take it away?
Yeah, I've been busy updating the Insta stories. It's been such a fun week. I mean, we had the energy of the 15-game win streak, and it was an upset losing to the Nets. But all in all, the scarf game was on point. I actually read some reports that maybe the reason why Serge was out with flu-like symptoms was because his scarf had carried so many germs in it that it was inevitable that he was going to get sick. But just some of my thoughts. The first game against the Nets, that was a great game for Terence Davis. He played for 30 minutes. He had, I think, 20 points that game, which was really incredible. And I think that game was televised nationally as well too, so great to see him. A shout out to O'Shea for getting his 1 point in the 8 minutes that he played, which was really cute. The Timberwolves game, pretty much agree with everything that Essie said. There was no true center. As you all know, I love Chris Boucher, so seeing him struggle and work so hard in the beginning of the game against Karl Anthony Towns, and then that move that Nick Nurse again, a lot of creativity by this amazing coach to have Chap be against play up against Karl Anthony Towns there. And this final game, I heard Kyle Lowry speak at the end after the game, and he said we were literally walking zombies, and there's been a bunch of photos floating around and videos of the guys they were dead tired. That was a long slog for them. So yeah, I think we'll be back after the break, and it's been a really fun but exhausting week.
I loved seeing the Raptors chemistry all just emphasized by the scarves. And if the Raptors organization is smart, the swag that they're going to sell this year is just going to be scarves, like Raptor scarves.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Drake's got to get on that with his OVO brand and get some OVO branded scarves. it's really incredible. One more thing, Sarah, and everyone else I wanted to add was just Freddie in that last game against the Nets. Like, he really hustled hard in the final, after halftime. And someone else was saying this, and maybe it was Will Liu, in I think we often forget just the magnitude that Freddie VanVleet is, and considering his height, because I think he's around 6'1", which is quite short. His range is spectacular, and I feel bad because I don't give the guy enough credit, but I definitely just wanted to acknowledge him in that last game against Brooklyn.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Allison, over to you.
I had a feeling that we were a little bit lucky to get that win against Brooklyn in the first game. But I think someone famous said, you have to be good to have luck. So it's kind of fitting that we were able to pull that one out. Beyond what everyone else has mentioned, Nick Nurse did roll 10 deep to get that win. And a couple of things stood out to me. Matt Thomas in 22 minutes, 15 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, and 3 steals, which was impressive. And then Fred, 33 minutes. He played a huge game, 4 for 9 from 3. And the Minnesota game, to Essie's point, I'm not sure how much we can take from that because they're integrating the new players that they acquired at the trade deadline. We allowed 75 points in the first half, which is next to no defense, but tightened things down in the second half. I think it was 51 points. Kyle played 41 minutes. And I'm glad someone else noticed, Essie, when you pointed out that Kat tried to post up Fred and Fred stopped him. So I guess maybe he's learning from Kyle, because Kyle sure can defend the post-ups from the big man down low. And then the last Brooklyn game, I guess we were tired. I don't know. Maybe this is the Crows coming home to roost with all the injuries and high minutes played. It was just kind of frustrating game. It was kind of tantalizingly within reach, but in the end, I guess it was just too much. And I've heard other sports journalists say that maybe it's a good thing the 15-game winning streak came to an end before the All-Star break, because that would be just additional pressure after the break. So, yeah, I predicted 3-0. So 2-1, it's okay.
One of the things I love so much about this team is their confidence. And the other thing I really like is they kind of have a lack of significance about things. And there are a couple of things that was said. I guess Fred said it. He said, I think winning is in our DNA. And what I really like about that is the sense that they just relate to, it's like they don't think about themselves as what they do. It's like they think of themselves as who they are, and who they are is winners. And so when they show up, there is, no matter who they're playing and no matter what's been going on, there's always the chance that they're going to win. And they think of it like, yes, we will. And I think that's a really cool way to think about your team, and a cool way to think about your sport. And, yes, there was a 15-game win streak, and it was so fun and so exciting, and I really loved it. And I'm sure that they were having a ton of fun with it. But I kind of don't think that they made it that significant, the same way I don't think they made their loss that significant. It's just part of the game. You win and you lose. And fortunately, they win more than they lose. And in this case, it happened to be 15 in a row. I don't want to dismiss it or make it seem like it's less than the feat that it actually was. I just really want to highlight how the Raptors seem to be thinking about it, which is just, this is what we do because we win. And and also losses happen. I don't know. I just really appreciate their mindset. I think they're really well set going into the playoffs, just in terms of how they think about the sport and their team.
But let's face it, winning streaks are fun. So, I kind of wanted them to reach that Milwaukee game, because then it would have been tied with Milwaukee for longest win streak of the season, and that game would have determined if they would have continued on with the win streak and pass Milwaukee. So I just thought it was fun, and I wanted them to reach Milwaukee with the win streak. But anyway, my 2 cents.
Oh yeah, I mean that would have been like an amazing story, an amazing setup, and definitely everyone would have made it meaningful. If the Raptors had beaten Milwaukee, it would have been super fun. Anyway, we'll talk about future games in a bit here. Let's move to our King of the North segment. So, who this week was a standout player? Actually, you know what? This week I'll just rephrase the question. Who's your Valentine for this week? Sonali, you go first.
For me, it's definitely Chap, or Rondé Hustle Jefferson, as he is called. Um, yeah, he's been up to the task, and what a phenomenal game he had against the Timberwolves. He had 21 points, I think. He's just such a good person, and I just love him, and he has such potential, and he's really coming up, and he's my guy. He's my guy. And I don't know if you guys saw the video of Serge giving everyone the scarves on the airplane, and the excitement that Chap had in receiving a scarf was just, it was palpable. It was so beautiful to watch too. But having said that, he's a phenomenal baller. So there we go. He's my guy this week.
That's awesome. Yeah, he had a great game. I remember a few weeks ago I named him the Jester of the Week because he kept missing his layups. And then one of our followers on Twitter wrote, "Oh my God, Chap's actually hitting his layups today," and I was like, "Wah!" It was very exciting. Anyway, okay, Allison, over to you. Who is your King of the North?
In the spirit of Valentine's Day and sentimentality, I'm not normally sentimental, I went with Nick Nurse, just because of a video that came out yesterday at the All-Star festivities. And he was in some sort of line with, I think it was a bunch of high school kids, and they were meeting Barack Obama. So Barack Obama shook Nick Nurse's hand and said, "You're doing an awesome job." And then he went to the young high school girl beside Nick Nurse, and she was tearful. I mean, I'm sure it was emotional for her to be meeting the president. And Nick Nurse put his arm around her and said, "This girl's #1 in her class." So it was just a really nice thing. And beyond that, it makes you realize what a president looks like. So that was a really nice moment.
I find that really hard to believe, Allison, that you don't consider yourself sentimental, because pretty much everything you send me via Twitter on WhatsApp makes me cry. So.
Aw.
Oh, you guys are sweet. Okay, SC, over to you.
So my King of the North, I mean, after Allison's sentimental one, I feel like mine is going to sound so dry. But so I also went with what Sonali chose, which was Rondé Hollis Jefferson, just for the game against Minnesota, where again he had to start at center against 7-foot Karl Anthony Towns, and for him to produce those results was tremendous. 21 points, 61% field goal percentage, 6 rebounds, and plus 20. And then also wanted to give a special shout out to OG in that game also, because he had 12 rebounds despite battling against Giants. They were like a dynamic duo, those two, you know, jumping up really high in the air for the rebounds and challenging despite being shorter. So I chose Rondé. To be honest, my first thought is always to go to Serge because, you know, I seem to choose him a lot, but I know he didn't play one game, and so I was like, oh, and then he was just so in other games. So yeah, I went with Rondé Hollis Jefferson.
That's great. I also chose somebody who was thrown into a starting role because of injury/illness. So in the game against Brooklyn, the first one, Kyle Lowry was out with whiplash, and Terence Davis had to start in his place. And what I want to say is Terence Davis just performed admirably in that starting role. He played 30 minutes. He had 8 rebounds and 20 points. And like, can we just acknowledge for a second that Terence Davis is an excellent rebounder for his size, and he is always in the mix to get the. I'm just astounded by his rebounding. And What else? I love his fearlessness. I love that he just shows up and it does not matter if he just made the dumbest play or had a rookie mistake. And then the next play, he'll just come back and be like, okay, well, I'm open. I'll shoot the ball. And he hits more than he misses. I actually don't know if that's entirely true because that would mean he'd have a field goal percentage over 50%. And I don't think he does, but I think he's pretty close to the 40% mark. And that I just really appreciate him as a player. He's so high energy. He's so confident. He's absolutely should have been in the Rising Stars game. And it's awesome to watch him play. Okay, let's go then quickly to Court Jester of the Week. And Allison, we're going to start with you.
Well, now I feel like a bad human being because I did pick Terence Davis for my court jester, but it's kind of a backhanded compliment in a way. He played 17 minutes in the game against Brooklyn, and he was 0 for 5 from 3. And what does it say about this kid that he's an undrafted rookie and we're just expecting him to step up and hit threes? So I guess it was an off game for him as it was for pretty much the rest of the team. But the fact that we see him in like a pivotal role and anchoring the offense is just a testament to what a steal we got with this young man. We were so lucky. This is good scouting.
Absolutely. And I'm going to be honest, I just ignored that game completely in choosing my person. So it's not a bad choice, Allison. It doesn't make you a bad human.
It was hard to pick anybody.
I agree.
Okay, well then Sonali, who did you pick?
So again, my reasons are unrelated. I mean, I know people were joking about Pat McCaw and how we've lifted the moratorium on like slandering him, but you know, I was looking at his plus and minuses. Like he had +6 in the game, the first Nets game, and then he was at +5 against the Timberwolves, and then with the Nets he was 0, which is still better than a minus, you know, scoring. So I'm not going to hate on Pat McCaw. I think my jester is going to be OG. Simply has nothing to do with how well or how poorly he's played ball, because he hasn't. He had a phenomenal week. He brought so much lightheartedness to this team this week, and they were all so tired, but he definitely put a lot of smiles on a lot of people's faces with his ridiculous ensembles. I mean, he was wearing those ridiculous orange highlighter colored Sweet Cookie sandals with that ridiculous orange scarf he had wrapped up all over his face, and you know, you could barely see his eyes. And then when a reporter asked him, you know, have you ever won 15 straight games anywhere else? And he said, yeah, I Connect 4. Like that's the only other game that I've ever won 15 straight games in. And it's just really nice to see how, you know, going back to what you were saying about Sarah, how this team is really, they know who they are and they are champions. And they show up as champions in every way. The confidence that pours off of this guy, it's incredible. And he's 22 years old. If I think about myself at 22, I did not have the confidence that OG Anunoby has. I also didn't have the paycheck that OG Anunoby has.
Okay, so for this week's Court Jester, you're basically going for who brought the comedy and the lightheartedness to the team this week.
So then, Sonali, why wasn't OG your King of the North then?
Because it just, you know, I think I've chosen him before, and I think that just going back to your point as well too, I mean, Cat is a fearless 7-foot like gigantic man, and the way Rondé Hollis Jefferson showed up in that game, I was wowed. It's like, you know, going on a date with somebody and you've seen them a few times, but then you actually really see the person where you're like, wow, I think I'm in love with this person. That's how I felt about Chap in that game. And OG's like the guy that just tells everybody he loves them all the time, and he's wonderful, but it's like, okay, yeah, we expect this from you.
Okay, I think I like your answer, but I feel like that is more of a Sonaliism that I might not ever understand. So we'll leave it at that.
Exactly, Essie. Let's just leave it at that.
Okay, Essie, well, who is your court jester of the week?
Yeah, so according to Allison's definition, I'm also a bad person. And the whole time you were talking, I was thinking, wow, this is a record on the Raptor Queens podcast, because I don't think we've ever had a scenario where somebody's King of the North was somebody's court jester of the North. So when you were talking, I was like, da, 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 like, oh my gosh. But anyway, so I know you said that you had your reasons for choosing him, but let me tell you the reasons I chose him as my court jester. So yeah, he played pretty well in the first Brooklyn game. He had 20 points, 46% from the field, 5 for 8 from 3, but he was -8. And one thing to keep in mind in that game was that the bench, because Terence started in that game, the bench was actually the reason that we grew a lead in that game because of that second quarter they had. So I didn't want to overcredit him in that game, if that makes sense, for the one game he supposedly played well in. Obviously, for a rookie, that's still really, really good. 20 points anytime for a rookie is amazing. But then we get to the Minnesota game, 1 for 5 from the field. He was -13. He was pretty much the worst on the team in terms of plus minus, only 3 points. And then it continues to be bad when you get to the second Brooklyn game. 0 for 6 from the field, -2, only 1 point. And so I had to make him my court jester. So yeah, we set a record here on Raptor Queens, but it definitely makes things more interesting when we see things in opposite views.
It's great. I love that we had differing viewpoints on it, and it's really no big deal. No big deal. And now I'm probably going to break Sonali's heart. I'll just choose my court jester of the week. And don't worry, I'm not going to choose Rondé. I agree with your analysis this time. But I see that you know where I'm going with this. I am choosing Chris Boucher. Yeah. And
It's okay.
is it?
It is.
Okay.
Tough love.
Yeah. And you know, I actually just really love what he brings to this team in terms of his energy. And sometimes it's just about sheer physicality and that he's really small for the position he plays, which is the center. And he's just a small, not small, he's tall. He's very, very tall, but very, very skinny and just not strong enough to take on a lot of the centers in this league. And that was apparent in the game against Minnesota with Kat. And yeah, so that's why I chose Chris Boucher. And he just has to get stronger, and I think he will.
You just reminded me of how, I think it was before that game, how I was laughing so much because I was like, I was worried about Chris Boucher starting. I mean, I feel bad saying it, but I was just like, oh my gosh, Chris Boucher is going to start. And then it turned out to be Rondé Hollis-Jefferson.
Yeah. Well, and so that takes us all the way now to into the All-Star break. And who's still injured right now of our top 8? We got Norm Powell still injured. We got Marcus All still injured. And I know that this break is everyone's going to take advantage of this break, get healthy, get some rest, which is good. It'll be nice to have Mark and Norm back when they can come back, of course. But yeah, so here we are at their All-Star break, and we're going to move in now to some of our Q&A questions that we received from our listeners. So first of all, thank you everyone who submitted a question. Really great to have your engagement, and we'll do our best to get to all of them. We'll just see how this goes in terms of timing. So our first question comes from Samson Folk, who is with Raptors Republic podcast. Thanks for submitting a question, Samson. This is at Sam Folk with 2 Ks. And he has a 2-part question. So the first question, let's start with this. Which of the Raptor Queens has the best jumper?
So in terms of like fashion jumper, I would say I would win that because I think out of the 4 of us, I probably own the most jumpers. And
Oh my gosh. It took a while to click what you meant. I was like, is she actually saying she's the best, like, literal, like, shooter without having even shot with us? It's funny because jumper is also used, it's like the British way of saying sweater too. So the fact
yeah, that's why
Essie, Sonali's just turning this question to her advantage because she knows she has the worst jumper of all of us. That's what's happening here.
It's true. I was gonna say, I think I would probably be the worst jumper. But now that I know that Allison is 5'9", I'm gonna just vote her because she towers over all three of us. Her shooting range is probably, well, I've seen you play, Sarah, and you're phenomenal. So I think I'm gonna go somewhere between you and Allison.
But you know nothing about Essie.
I know, because Essie and I have like some, she's always like Sonaliisms, and we have a little bit of beef going on here. So I'm purposely like waiting for her to respond to me.
shade. Well, that's okay, Sonali. I don't need you to choose me because I think that I would have the best jumper. And
you're going to advocate for yourself.
So I will, and that's because the last time I played basketball, which I admit was a long time ago, I did spend a lot of time at the free throw line, and from the free throw line, I can make quite a bit in a row. And I think it's just because it's the exact spot where I still have arm strength to make the ball reach the net. But if I stand from like the 3-point line, it's always an air ball. So I'm just gonna go based off of the last time I shot from the free throw line.
So I have not played ball since high school, which was many, many years ago. My sports hobbies lend more towards like canoe tripping and anything which involves or can involve my dogs. So I'm going to have to say, out of the 4 Raptor queens, any of you have a better jumper than I.
Wow, what a politically correct answer.
Okay, so based on your guys' responses to our listeners, the only people who have ever met on our podcast are me and Sonali, and we've known each other for a very long time, almost 20 years now. But the rest of us have not met, and we've never played basketball against each other, so there's no real way to know. But based on what their answers are, I think it would probably come down to me and Essie. I played ball in high school. I've played like pickup all the time in university. My nickname used to be Sniper, so at one point I was good at this. And after the Raptors won last season, I started playing pickup ball again, and yeah, just played a lot. And I don't know, I have a decent jumper.
Oh, Sarah the Sniper versus Essie Magic. Let's go. Next time we meet, it's you and I, kiddo.
We could do like skills competition or just like shooting competition or actually one-on-one.
So we can do all 3, best of 3.
All right, let's do it. Okay, everyone, special episode going to come up at some point where we're going to all meet up with one another and we'll play ball. So thanks for the question, Samson. That was good. Next question. How would you defend Masai Ujiri in his upcoming legal case? So just in case anyone doesn't know what happened at the when the Raptors won the championship, literally when they won at the end of that game, Masai Ujiri was making his way onto the court in in Oakland playing against Golden State Warriors. And something happened, and I'm not entirely sure what exactly happened, and like the camera shows very little happening, but basically a security guard was trying to prevent him from getting onto the court to celebrate with the team and accused Masai Ujiri of shoving him. Anyway, this was dismissed in, they actually pressed charges. Those charges were dismissed, but now the same security guard is filing a lawsuit against Masai Ujiri and the Raptors organization, claiming like bizarre damages, like issues with mental health, and that he's been like scarred for life, just like very bizarre things. Anyway, so the question is, how would we defend Masai Ujiri in his upcoming legal battle? We have 2 lawyers on this podcast. Let's start with one of them. Sonali, what would you do?
Yeah, so I have spent a lot of time thinking about this question, Samson. And usually, so just for the fans who may not know the legal sort of jargon. So what happened, as Sarah explained, is that, the criminal charges have been dismissed, but oftentimes people who are making criminal charges that are related to something like assault, which is what Mr. Strickland, we'll call him, Alan Strickland, the sheriff who's the plaintiff in this, he's alleging that it was malicious, and he's sued him for 75 grand, which, first of all, you're suing Masai Ujiri, and you've named the Raptors, and also I think another association as the defendants. You should be asking for a lot more money, I think. And secondly, yes. So just to give you a little breakdown, so when you do an opening statement for a personal injury claim, you start off with the theme. So you'd be addressing the members of the jury. So in this case, you're talking about our client, who is the president of basketball operations for the Toronto Raptors. Toronto, spelled Toronto, which is a city in Canada, which is a country that is like north of the country that you are in, sir. Maybe he doesn't know where Toronto is. Like that's the first thing I would be asking this man about. And then there's two sides to the story. So you start to poke holes in the plaintiff's case. He alleged that Mr. Ujiri punched him in the face and in the chest with 2 fists. And I'm doing the motion right now. I mean, punching somebody with 2 fists and then knocking that person several feet means that Masai Ujiri must be an Avenger, or he must be some Marvel comic villain, which is incredible in itself. And in the actual, and I think if people have like nothing to do, they should really look at the court proceeding, the actual claim itself, because in the claim, Mr. Strickland says there should have been signs posted that said, warning people of potential dangers, including the potential danger of Masai Ujiri. So there should have been a sign that actually warned fans of the destructive force that Masai Ujiri was going to bring into that Oracle Arena on that fateful day for the Toronto Raptors in Game 6, which is really interesting. So I think these lawyers that they have in this case know that it's a losing case. So they're just trying to find everything they can to bring Masai down here. And I as Masai said in an interview, I think the truth will come out itself. And this is quite ridiculous, and it sort of speaks volumes of the sort of litigious society that exists in the United States.
So I'm going to say, Sonali, after that thorough explanation, I would just hire you to defend Masai Ujiri, because I think you would do a great job.
Oh man, I mean, it sucks. It sucks when your team loses, and this is just a really awful way to get back at Toronto for losing, for putting an end to a dynasty. Sorry about that, Oakland Sheriff.
Shots fired.
This is just outrageous. You got to feel badly for Masai Ujiri, like on the best day of his life. I mean, other than the day he got married and had his kids, this moment was basically stolen from him by this gentleman. So when I saw the question, my first thought was, I've never been a rule follower. So my first thought was, just give him the Tanya Harding treatment, the plaintiff. I mean, this guy is scum of the earth, I'm sure. And it's disheartening, and it's outrageous. And, as Sonali said, and as Masai said, I'm sure the truth will come out.
And that's that, it goes back to that whole, you know who you are. When you know who you are, the truth does come out. And most of these personal injury claims are usually, there's a lot of medical evidence. Like there's lots of money involved in here. And that's why I'm sort of surprised that this person isn't asking for more money, because $75,000 is basically probably going to just pay the lawyer's fees really at the end of the day. So
yeah, I would make an application to just completely dismiss the charge, and then I would countersue for defamation. All right, so next is I like this question from Andrew Williams, which is at Way Truth Life. Way spelled WHEY, Truth Life. What is the ideal Raptors path to the finals? So what I like about this question, first of all, is we're going to assume the Raptors get to the finals. So round 1, round 2, round 3, who are your favorites that we would match up against? And then who do you want to see in the finals? And let's rapid fire this. If you want to add some explanation, let's say 1 or 2 sentences max. And Allison, let's start with you.
So I'd say Brooklyn first round, either Philly or Indiana second round. And then, I mean, obviously we'd be going up against Milwaukee again. And in a best case scenario, if there's a final, I don't know. I can't decide between the Lakers and the Clippers. I think I'd rather face the Clippers.
Excellent. Essie, over to you.
Yeah, so where we're sitting right now is definitely the optimal position, because I don't think we're going to catch Milwaukee in the first seed. So facing Brooklyn in the first round, I think would be good for us. I think we would definitely win the first round. And then after that, we would face the winner of Boston and Indiana, it looks like. So between Boston and Indiana, I'm not afraid of any of them. Indiana, I mean, we've kind of not exposed them, but we've been able to learn how to play them better with these last couple of games. And then Boston, their big men aren't as strong, so I think we have an advantage there, like when we're fully healthy, of course. And then it would be Milwaukee in the East Finals. And then if we beat them, I would love for us to face the Lakers.
Okay, awesome. Sonali?
Yeah, same. I would say Brooklyn, then the Pacers, and then the Bucks, and then I'm going to go with Essie on this one, and I want to see us face the Lakers, because that's going to make our podcast so much more entertaining, because she's a Lakers fan as well, too. So
I'm all for it.
Okay, so I was thinking about this, and I know right now we're in 2 and Brooklyn's in 7. So let's say that matchup does happen. It would be, and I know Kevin Durant is not supposed to come back this season, but what if he came back? And then we would have a rematch of the Raptors playing a team where Kevin Durant was injured and then came back. And then when we beat Brooklyn, people could finally say, oh, the Raptors could have won or should have won or whatever. Just that whole narrative about if KD was here, the Raptors would have lost would be destroyed. And I would love that.
totally.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for indulging my drama. Okay, and then second round matchup, I think it would be fun to see a Boston series. And then the next one, yeah, but Bucks, I can't wait for that rematch. I really hope that happens. It'll be amazing. And then I would say I probably would want the Clippers so we could show Kawhi Leonard that he was dumb for leaving.
Oh my gosh, did you just throw a mild shot at Kawhi Leonard, who you historically claim to love?
That's why I need to show him he's dumb for leaving.
It's like that unrequited love, you know?
All right, so our next question is from Terence Davis to fan account. I think he's a fan of Terence Davis. And this is at 6ix dog. If you had an all Raptors all-star Saturday night, who would you pick for each event? The skills challenge, you got to pick one small and one big. The 3-point challenge, pick 2 players from the Raptors to go head-to-head. And the dunk contest, pick 2 players to go head-to-head. Well, let's start with the skills challenge, one small, one big from the Raptors. Who would you pick? Allison.
So I would have to pick Fred against Pascal. It would be kind of extra intrigue because they're such good friends. As far as the three-point shooting, I'd like to see Matt Thomas go up against Fred VanVleet. And for a dunk contest featuring just Raptors, I'd like to see Norm and then OG Anunoby, both very explosive.
Ooh, good choices. Sonali's excited. Okay, Sonali, over to you.
Yeah, no, definitely the dunk. I'm with you on that one, Allison. I would choose Norm and OG for that. For the shooting, definitely Matt Thomas would be there, but I would also choose who was the other person that you said? You said Matt Thomas
Fred.
and Fred. Oh yeah, that's a great matchup. Sure. And then I'll just also be on your. I'm just gonna pick everything that Allison picked. Pascal and Fred for the skills as well too.
That doesn't surprise me. You were jumping up and down throughout Allison's entire answer. So, Essie, over to you.
So for the first part, one small versus big, I agree with Fred VanVleet versus Pascal. But I would say that if I didn't have to choose a big, I would actually rather be Fred versus Norm. And the reason being is because I think it's more of an even matchup, and Fred would have more of a chance because he wouldn't be going against Pascal's long strides. And they both have similar three-point shooting. I think where Norm might struggle a little bit is the passing the ball through the hole, whichever, because he's not as good of a passer. And they're both good at racing up the floor to hit layups. So I actually would love to see Norm versus Fred. And then for the three-point challenge, I choose Matt Thomas and Terence Davis, because I believe he has the second highest three-point shooting on our team of someone who plays decent minutes. And then the dunk contest, yeah, Norm and OG were what I was thinking too. The only thing was I was worried about would OG turn into one of those people who keeps missing because he can't hold the ball because his ball handling. But anyway, of our team, I think he and Norm would be the best.
Okay, that's fun. Skills contest, one big, one small. Yeah, I think I'm trying to go differently from you guys. So if I was just going to go differently, I would actually probably just want to see Kyle do it because it's Kyle. But I would still pick Pascal for the big. So that's who I pick. And then for the three-point shooting contest, Terence Davis. Yeah, up against Matt Thomas. I'm sorry, I just don't have anything new to say, and I would absolutely pick Norm and OG. And Norm would be my favorite. I just love how athletic he is, and yeah, he's just an interesting player to me. So yeah. Okay, next question. This will be our last question. It's an interesting one. This is from, I don't actually know, I guess Lou, Anti-Toronto 2001 Draw Fats. And it's your boy W1LL. Okay. And the question is, what do you think OG's ceiling is? Allison.
This is a really good question, and it got me thinking. So I talked to my good friend Alif about this, who's a baller, and he knows his basketball history. So my comparison would have been to Gerald Wallace, so sort of that type of player. Maybe his upside would be maybe a double-double kind of player. He's got to use his strength and his gravity more down low for rebounding, and he's got to develop a mid-range shot. If he can do those things, I see him as like, I don't know, a 14-10 guy maybe.
Okay, Essie, what do you think?
So with OG, we've definitely seen some increased production from him this season. We've seen some growth in terms of his stats, his performance. Like his field goal percentage has gone up, obviously points. But I really think that the improvements we have seen from him have primarily been just because his minutes have gone up. With his minutes increasing, we've also seen an increase in turnovers, and we all know what he's like with his ball handling. So I just don't see him, like, I don't see that much growth from here on in, if I'm being honest with you. So I think his ceiling, I think he's kind of almost reaching his ceiling, since that's what the question was about. I think he's great for specific roles, like how we put him on Karis LeVert at the end of that first Brooklyn game, and he shut him down. I think he's great for things like that, putting him on the toughest guy to guard. But I just, until I see improvement from his ball handling, because to me, his ball handling is like a G League player or something. Like, I don't know if it's just me, but it's just so bad. And I just feel I like cringe when he's going to attempt to do something. I think he's great for the open three. He's great when he's cutting to the basket and obviously getting lobs. But I just think that he's going to be a role player, and for specific things, like I said before, about tackling the hardest guy on defense. Yeah, so sorry, the ceiling is low.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that's a very clear, not hot take. Listen, you're very cool on AG or OG. All right, Sonali.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm always the eternal optimist, but I have to agree with Essie. I mean, you've like, his ball handling is a bit problematic for me, and there's a little lack of fluidity in his overall game. So I don't think the ceiling is really high for me either. And I mean, I guess the one thing I am optimistic about in terms of him is maybe as he has more minutes, like he, historically has been sort of a lower usage player. So the more we see, the more I want to see his jump shot improve. And so, who knows, but definitely a role player. And yeah, I in the beginning, somebody had compared him to Kawhi Leonard, that he was going to be the next Kawhi. I certainly don't think that's the case here. So.
All right, I think I'm a little bit warmer on OG than Essie and Sonali, and maybe a little bit more aligned with Allison for now. The thing I'm the most curious about for OG is how he will be coached to improve and how much work he'll put in to improve. And to me, that actually dictates it. Like, if this guy wants to become a better ball handler and he's coached properly and does the work to do it, then he will. And so I do think that there is increased production offensively that we're going to see in the coming years, because I don't think he's a lazy player. You can't be a lazy player and be that good on defense. So I know that he is willing to put in the work to improve his offensive game. So I think I might be more on Allison's side. He's going to remain an excellent defender. His rebounding game is, I think, inevitably going to improve. And then in terms of point production, what you could expect from him, I almost see him more like Norm, where it might take some time to have him really generate an offensive breakthrough where he can consistently perform. But I'd say we could reasonably expect 14 to 18 a game from him 2 years out. That's my thoughts. And then maybe he'll surprise us and average over 20 at some point in his career. But I think Allison's probably got this one. That's my take. So that's going to wrap up our Q&A. Thanks again to everyone who submitted a question. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your question for just timing reasons. We'll do another Q&A again soon. This was our first one. Thanks for tuning in. And what do we have coming up this week? Obviously, there's the All-Star game tomorrow, and it is the Team Giannis versus Team LeBron. And we will do a quick prediction about that in just a second. Then we have a one game. The Raptors don't play again until next Friday, and they play the Phoenix Suns. So quick predictions from each of you. Who wins the All-Star game? Who wins the Suns game against the Raptors? Sonali, go.
Team Giannis is going to win, and I'm totally biased about that one. And I think, we're going to beat the Suns.
All right, Essie.
This is tough because obviously all my Raptors are on Team Giannis, and I also, like I mentioned last week, I am a huge Giannis fan. But I'm gonna go with Team LeBron, and that's because I just think they have so much star power on that team. They have all the MVP candidates on that team, and I think the game will be close. Though I don't think they're gonna blow Team Giannis out the water, but I think that Team LeBron will win. And then for the Phoenix game, I think we will come out swinging because of the redemption from the loss against Brooklyn. So I think we will beat the Suns.
Perfect. Okay, Allison?
Team Giannis, and it's a W against Phoenix.
Okay, and I'm gonna complete the predictions. I also think the win against Phoenix, and tomorrow I'm going with Essie, and I think Team LeBron's gonna win.
Agreed on something. Oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
It's a borderline miracle. Okay, we are gonna wrap it up.
And shout out, I just want to give a shout out. There's a couple of senior citizens out there that have been listening to our podcast because their grandchildren are playing the podcast with them. And so if you've got grandparents who, want something lighthearted, but also has like a really spectacular analysis, I think our podcast is like, it caters to that vintage of people. Yay, Grams!
Okay, everyone. Y'all are already listening, but tell your friends to tune in at Raptor Queens. We're on Twitter, Buzzsprout, Apple, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram. And really happy to have you all with us. And we'll talk to you next week.